Stand anywhere along the docks at False Creek in Vancouver on a Saturday morning in late August and watch what happens. You'll see new trawlers, shiny gel coat, dealer decals still on the windows, price tags that would make your mortgage broker nervous, sitting quietly at the dock while their owners try to figure out why the chart plotter keeps rebooting. And 20 slips down, tied to a worn wooden cleat. There's a boat that's been in the water since the Trudeau years. The first Trudeau, and it looks exactly like what it is, a working vessel that has crossed the Strait of Georgia 40 times and doesn't particularly care about your opinion. I've been surveying and advising on boats in Canada for over 3 decades. I've worked with buyers from Tofino to Twillingate, from the North Channel of Lake Huron to the outer islands of Nova Scotia. And the pattern I see repeat itself year after year is the same one. Canadians undervalue old quality and overpay for new mediocrity. The word underrated gets used too loosely. So let me define what I mean. An underrated trawler is one where the price in the current Canadian market is dramatically lower than what the actual build quality, seakeeping ability, and long-term ownership experience would justify. These are boats the dealers don't mention, the online forums don't celebrate, and the marina neighbors don't recognize. And they are, in several cases, better boats than anything being manufactured today at double or triple the price. We're going to count down 7 of them, from 7th place to the single most underrated trawler currently available in the Canadian market. I've personally surveyed or worked with boats from every category on this list. I have opinions, and I'm going to share them without softening anything for the sake of brand loyalty or dealer relationships. One more thing before we start. The boat I'm placing at number 1 is one that consistently surprises people when I recommend it. Even experienced boaters raise an eyebrow. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why it earns the top position. Don't skip ahead. The context matters. Number 7. The Monk 35, Ed Monk Sr. Design. Rick was a retired forester from Prince George who wanted to retire onto the water, literally. He'd been researching live-aboard options for 2 years, and everything he found in his $75,000 range felt either too small or too worn out. Then, a fellow at the Comox Marina mentioned an Ed Monk-designed 35-footer sitting in Campbell River. What most people don't realize is that Ed Monk Sr. was one of the most influential naval architects in Pacific Northwest history. His designs, built by various yards from the 1950s through the 1970s, were purpose-engineered for British Columbia coastal water, not California water, not Florida water, BC water, cold, deep, unpredictable, with tidal currents that demand a hull that tracks well and a boat that doesn't exhaust its crew. Rick paid $58,000 for a 1971 example with a rebuilt Perkins diesel. He's been living aboard at the Comox Marina for 3 years. His monthly costs, moorage, insurance, maintenance reserve, run less than a 1-bedroom apartment in any Metro Vancouver suburb. Who should buy a Monk 35? BC live-aboards and coastal cruisers with a mechanical inclination. Who should avoid it? Buyers unfamiliar with older diesel systems or unwilling to invest in professional systems education. Number 6. The Kamano 31. Susan and her partner moved to the Gulf Islands after selling their Langley home in 2021. They wanted a boat that could serve as a secondary home, could handle Georgia Strait crossings without drama, and, critically, wouldn't require a professional crew to manage. Everyone at the brokerage steered them toward newer center console cruisers. I steered them toward a Kamano 31. Here's what nobody tells you about the Kamano line. These boats were designed in the Pacific Northwest, specifically for the kind of cruising most BC boaters actually do. Not offshore passage making, not racing. Real cruising. Island hopping, anchoring in protected coves, managing weather windows between Nanaimo and the Gulf Islands. The Kamano 31's hull form is unusually efficient for its size. Susan's boat burns less fuel per nautical mile than any comparable length vessel I've seen in this price bracket. The detail that changes everything. Kamano owners form one of the most active and resourceful owner communities in Canadian boating. Parts, advice, and expertise are freely shared. Susan told me she had 5 unsolicited offers of help from other Kamano owners within the first week of buying hers. That kind of community support has real dollar value over the life of boat ownership. Who should buy a Kamano 31? BC coastal cruisers, Gulf Island residents, couples who want a manageable all-weather cruiser. Who should avoid it? Buyers needing extended offshore range, or Great Lakes buyers who want a more traditional trawler aesthetic. Number 5. The Mainship 34. Trawler. Here's a name that divides opinions. I've heard mainship dismissed by marina snobs more times than I can count. I've also watched a man named Pierre from Salaberry to Valleyfield cruise his mainship 34 from Montreal down to the Maritimes and back without a single mechanical issue that cost more than $200 to resolve. The snobs can keep their opinions. What most people don't realize about the mainship 34 is that the design, despite its affordable price point, incorporates a semi-displacement hull that allows for genuine versatility, slower displacement mode fuel economy when you want range, and enough speed reserve for when Lake Ontario turns ugly and you need to get somewhere quickly. Pierre paid $34,000 for his 1997 example. A newer boat with equivalent capability would have cost him 4 times that. Who should buy a mainship 34? Ontario and Quebec boaters on the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence who want versatility without a premium price. Who should avoid it? Buyers seeking the prestige of a recognized offshore brand. The mainship name won't impress anyone at the yacht club. Number 4. The North Pacific. 43. I want to pause here for a moment because if you're watching this and taking notes, good. This is exactly the kind of information that can save you tens of thousands of dollars and years of ownership frustration. If you find value in what I'm sharing, subscribe to this channel. I release content specifically for Canadian boaters every single week, and everything I produce is based on real surveys, real boats, and real ownership experiences. Not press releases, not sponsored content. Subscribe and let's keep going. Now, the North Pacific 43. Hector and his wife came to me after 20 years of dreaming about a long-range cruiser. Hector had worked in the oil patch near Fort McMurray for most of his career, saved carefully, and retired at 58 with a clear goal. He wanted to cruise from BC to Alaska and back. He'd been quoted over $350,000 for new boats that could do it. I showed him a North Pacific 43. What the sales brochures leave out about the North Pacific line is that these boats were engineered specifically for the inside passage and extended Pacific Northwest cruising. Full keel, protected prop and rudder, massive tankage. The North Pacific 43 carries enough fuel and water to make multi-day offshore passages without resupply. Hector paid $92,000 for a well-maintained 2001 example. He made the Alaska run last summer. He described the boat as boring in the best possible way. It just does exactly what it's supposed to do, every single time. Who should buy a North Pacific 43? BC and Alaska-bound cruisers with a budget around $80,000 to $110,000 Canadian. Who should avoid it? Buyers needing speed. The North Pacific is built for range and reliability, not performance. Number 3. The DeFever. 41. The DeFever name appears on this list twice, here at number 3 and in an expanded form at number 1. That is not an accident. Arthur DeFever's design philosophy produced some of the most seaworthy small ship hulls ever to come out of Pacific construction yards, and the 41 is the version that most Canadian buyers can reasonably access in the $60,000 to $90,000 range. A couple I worked with, Anna and her husband from Kelowna, found a DeFever 41 in Sydney for $78,000. Their surveyor, not me, a colleague I recommended, described the hull as exceptional for its age, with construction quality that shames most boats built in the last 20 years. The Lehman diesel had been professionally overhauled. Anna told me the previous owner, a retired naval officer, had maintained it the way most people maintain their first car. The detail that changes everything. The DeFever 41 has an almost cult-like following among serious passage makers. Parts, advice, and shared knowledge are available through an international owners network that includes Canadian cruisers from every coast. You are never truly alone in a DeFever. Who should buy a DeFever 41? Serious cruisers planning coastal or offshore passages who want proven naval architecture at used market prices. Who should avoid it? First-time boat buyers who aren't ready for the learning curve of a full-keel offshore vessel. Number 2. The Grand Banks. 36 if the Grand Banks 32. I described in a previous video represents entry-level Grand Banks quality, and it is extraordinary entry-level quality, then the 36 is where the legend truly begins. The Grand Banks 36 is, without exaggeration, the most consistently well-regarded used trawler in the Canadian market among experienced cruisers. And right now, you can buy one for between $80,000 and $130,000 Canadian, depending on vintage and condition. I remember standing with a buyer named Frank, retired electrician from Hamilton, meticulous man, the kind who writes things down. in front of a 1985 Grand Banks 36 at a Penetanguishene brokerage. The asking price was $94,000. Frank had been pre-approved for $160,000. He kept looking at me and asking what the catch was. There was no catch. The boat was simply old enough to be undervalued and well-built enough to not care. What most people don't realize about the Grand Banks 36 specifically is that this model was produced during the brand's golden manufacturing era, when Malaysian and Taiwanese craftsmen with decades of teak working experience were building interiors that Western yards could not reproduce at any price. The hull layup on these boats is heavier than current production standards by a significant margin. Frank's surveyor measured the hull and called it overbuilt by modern standards, which in this context means perfect. Frank bought the boat. He spent $18,000 on a professional mechanical and systems refit over the winter. New through hulls, updated electronics, serviced engine. Total investment, $112,000 Canadian. He has since cruised the entire Georgian Bay coastline, made the Trent Severn run twice, and is currently planning a trip to the St. Lawrence. Mechanical issues to date: one raw water impeller. Cost, $32.45. Who should buy a Grand Banks 36? Any serious Canadian cruiser with a budget between $80,000 and $150,000 who wants genuine offshore-capable quality and is prepared to invest in a proper refit. Who should avoid it? Buyers expecting modern amenities without modernization work. These boats reflect their era, and updating them requires budget and patience. Number 1. The DeFever Trawlers 48 series. And here is where everything I've said today converges. The DeFever 44 and 48 series trawlers, built between the late 1960s and the mid-1980s, are the single most underrated vessels in the entire Canadian used boat market. Not just in this category, in any category, at any price point, for the specific combination of qualities that a serious Canadian cruiser actually needs. I have surveyed or worked with 11 of these boats in Canadian waters over my career. Every single one of them, every one, demonstrated hull integrity, structural quality, and mechanical accessibility that would be remarkable in a new boat at $400,000. In a boat you can buy today for $60,000 to $120,000 Canadian, it is almost incomprehensible. Here is the summary of why this boat earns the top position on every list I've ever made. Full keel protection in BC tidal waters and Newfoundland coastal rock. Lehman or Perkins diesel power with Canadian parts availability in virtually every coastal community. Fuel tankage that gives you real range, not weekend trip range, but passage-making range. An owner community that shares knowledge across borders. And a used market price that has not caught up to what these boats actually represent. I told Gordon all of this on that October morning on the Fraser River. I told him to walk away from the $240,000 new boat to find a DeFever 44, to refit it properly, and to go sailing, go cruising, go actually live the life he'd been planning for 14 months. He did. And he's been on the water for 3 seasons. Last postcard I got from him was mailed from Bella Bella, BC. He was heading north. The boat was running perfectly. Recap: Monk 35 for BC liveaboards, Kamano 31 for Gulf Islands cruising, Mainship 34 for Great Lakes versatility, North Pacific 43 for Alaska-bound adventurers, DeFever 41 for serious coastal passage-making, Grand Banks 36 for investment-grade quality, and at number 1, the DeFever 44-48, the most underrated vessel in Canada, full stop. If this helped you, please like this video, drop a comment telling me which boat surprised you most, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The Canadian marine market is full of overlooked value, and I am far from done finding it for you.